Good afternoon, everyone. We are very excited for presenting today. How can you personalize and automate your contact center experiences? In the session today, we have two presenters. First, Shobit Gupta, that's myself. I'm a senior product manager with Amazon Web Services. Quinn, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Quinn, and I'm a specialist solutions architect for Amazon Connect.
Great. Now let us get started. In the agenda today, we have 5 items. First, we're going to introduce to you what is Amazon Connect and how it can help you to solve for a smarter and more automated contact center experiences. Second, we're going to walk through some challenges that our customers tell us they face for personalizing the customer experience for contact centers. Third, we're going to start talking about a new feature that we launched last December at reInvent 2020 called Amazon Connect Customer Profiles, and how this new feature can really help you personalize and automate your contact center experiences. And then we'll walk the talk. We'll have Quinn presenting on how to build for these above use cases identified in a builder session. And finally, we're going to leave you with rich resources to get started, such as blogs, documentation, and other assets. All right, with that, let's get started with introduction to Amazon Connect. So one of the common questions we hear from our customers are like this. Hey, I'm struggling with low CSAT scores. How can I improve my customer experience? Hey, I have heard AWS is great with machine learning and artificial intelligence. How can I infuse that into my contact centers to make it smarter? Or we have questions such as, I want to innovate for improving my customer experience, but I don't want to incur a lot of large upfront costs. At the same time, we always get questions such as, hey, in my contact center, I'm struggling with longer than average hold durations, long queue durations. We have a lot of call volumes with limited agents. Can you help us optimize for costs and a better customer experience? And to address these questions, we have Amazon Connect. Amazon Connect is an easy-to-use, omni-channel cloud contact center experience. Amazon Connect has been built after years of work on understanding how Amazon.com scales its contact center experiences. It's the same technology that powers contact center experiences for Amazon.com. Now, going up straight is what are the different parts of Amazon Connect that makes it special? First, self-service configuration that enables instant innovation. So we provide the ability for our customers to get started with a contact center within a few hours. That's number one. And this can be done by just going to the management console, spinning up an instance of Amazon Connect without any requirement of coding. The second is that a traditional contact center has multiple applications inside it. There is a multiple application for tracking the efficiency of your agents, for managing customer data, for understanding how routing works. And Amazon Connect brings all of these applications together in one application, which is Amazon Connect. So you just get started with Amazon Connect and you get this suite of features and services under the same banner. The third is automated experiences. We live in a world where when customers reach out to organizations, they want their queries to be resolved as soon as possible. Sometimes that doesn't even require talking to an agent. And in situations like this, Amazon Connect provides dynamic, personal, and natural automated experiences. Then, with our host of AI and ML services, every interaction that your customers have within contact center can be analyzed for sentiments, can be analyzed for predicting customer intent, and can be analyzed for how can they be personalized for routing using our AI and ML services. And finally, the most important thing is that we want our contact center to be up and running with high level of security and real-time nature, which is supported by Amazon Connect. And the most important that this is cloud-first solution where you pay as you go. Awesome. So with this slide, we have understood about how Amazon Connect can help you build cloud contact center experiences within a few minutes. Now, coming to the context of this webinar, where how to personalize your customer experience if you're using Amazon Connect customer profiles. So Amazon Connect Customer Profiles is a service that was launched at reInvent 2020 that helps you to basically achieve three objectives. One, it helps you to ingest all of your customer data from all the different data applications into Amazon Connect. So now your agents don't need to go to individual applications to get customer data during a phone call. They get all of that data inside Amazon Connect. Number two, as soon as a contact comes in, customer profiles scans, matches, and deduplicates customer data. What it means is that for the same customer might have different records across different applications. Amazon Connect Customer Profiles removes those duplicate records for you so that every time your agent interacts with a customer, they have one profile, one unified profile that they are interacting with, and not multiple profiles, saving them time and making them more productive. The third is the agent desktop experience. At the time of contact, be it from a chat, be it from voice, be it from IVR, customer profiles finds the matching record using the incoming phone number and surfaces that record in the agent desktop experience for your contact center agents. With this, we have learned that Amazon Connect Customer Profiles enables your agents to deliver faster and more personalized customer service. At Amazon, we are super customer obsessed. And in this situation, we are going to highlight how one of our customers, in this case, is a fictitious company called Any Company, is struggling to provide the customer experience they need for their customers. The main reason that our customer, Any Company, is struggling to provide this experience is they're experiencing high call volumes, and that's a very common trait we see in reservation companies, in service companies, where there are a lot of customers calling up and asking about a follow-up. So they're expecting large call volumes. And because of large call volumes and limited agents, they're experiencing longer than average wait times. Now, longer than average wait times can be because like call duration is running long, or agent is not able to resolve the customer issue in time, or there's just like too many people calling in. Long story short, the longer than average wait times is what we're going to solve for in the webinar today. Now, Any Company plans to do the following to reduce their average wait times and improve their customer experience. Number one, they want to reduce the average handle times. Average handle times is the time that an agent spends in interacting with the customer. And the way they want to solve it is by providing more agent productivity tools, such as a unified agent experience. Second, they want to reduce the call duration overall. And by reducing the call duration overall, what they want to do is as soon as a call comes in, they want to detect who is calling. They want to understand if that caller even needs an agent, or they can just be routed to a self-service workflow, such as checking status of a case, checking status of a return item, logging a return, and so on. Third, they want to improve the customer experience by personalized routing experiences. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say that you're a customer who just had an interaction with an agent. Somehow your call drops. Now you want to call back after an hour. Any company wants to match that incoming caller back to the same agent that they were talking to. This saves time both for the customer and for the agent because they know the context of the call. So to summarize, we are going to walk through how Any Company today moves from longer hold wait durations to a more smart and personalized and automated contact center. Now, coming to the problem statement, right? So I think when we talk to our customers, the main problem statement that we always reach to is that whenever they get a contact from a customer, the agent is spending a lot of their time going through multiple applications. For example, if a customer is calling in to check status of an order, The agent has to first go through their CRM system, identify who is calling. They have to ask clarifying questions such as, what is your name? What's your email address? What's your account number? That helps them to pull up the record of the caller in the CRM system. Now they take the record from the CRM system and then they go to a case management system. And the case management system, they try to understand, all right, if this is the customer, this is their account number, what are the cases attached to it? Then once they go to the case management system, they are able to find the status of, was the order shipped to them? Has the order yet not been shipped to them? What's the delay? And sometimes they have to even go to the provider, which can be FedEx or which can be UPS service to really track the order. Now, what it does is that while an agent is doing all of this back-end work, the customer is on a hold. For the first couple of minutes of a phone call, the customer is waiting on a phone call just so that the agent can get and stitch all the information that they need to service them. In our analysis, we have found that more than 30 to 35% of the time during a call is spent in just stitching this data together into a unified view. And what does it lead to? It leads to poor customer experience and higher contact center costs. And this is the problem we want to solve with Amazon Connect customer profiles. With Amazon Connect customer profiles, a contact center admin can just go to the management console, AWS management console, click and select their third-party application, such as a CRM system from Salesforce, a case management system such as ServiceNow and Zendesk, or just an homegrown system from S3. They can select that within a few clicks and start ingesting their data within an hour. So what it does is that within a few clicks, a contact center admin is empowered to ingest data from these different sources and provide it to their agent in one single view. So that's the first value proposition of Amazon Connect customer profiles, providing pre-configured connectors for ingesting data from third-party applications. As soon as we start to detect that data is coming in from multiple applications, which can be, let me take an example of Salesforce and ServiceNow. So let's say that customers' data is coming in from Salesforce and the case data is coming in from ServiceNow. What we are doing behind the scenes is we are also unifying this data and we are deduplicating this data so that when this data comes in front of an agent, it doesn't come as 2 or 3 different records, but it comes as one unified record. And we use machine learning to identify which records are similar to each other and that can be tied together. So the value for that agent is your agent doesn't have to look at multiple tabs or multiple sources of data, and they can see all of that data in a single view. And this is how an end experience in front of an agent looks like. In order to really drive personalization, such as predicting the reason for the call before you're even connected, the agent gets an automatic pop of the customer profile in their agent desktop experience. And that already has information such as case information, purchase history, contact info, and even customer insights. Let me give you an example for this. Let's say that I'm a customer who is calling back to check the status of a plumbing work that I have logged in for. So I called into a service company. I set up a service ticket for somebody to come and check my plumbing in my house. Now I'm calling them back. When I'm calling them back, the customer needs to have an ability, or rather the contact center needs to have an ability to first detect who is calling. And that comes in from the contact information. So as soon as the call gets connected, you get the contact information. Second, I need to know when did this person approach the center in the past. Like if they're calling in just in the last 24 hours, I can prioritize that call. And that comes from the contact history. I can also prioritize the calls on the basis of call sentiments, such as maybe the customer had a bad customer experience the last time when they were logging the service ticket, and they need to be prioritized to a more experienced agent. I can also go and see what the historical transactions that customer has done with the specific organization. Let me take another quick example. Another example can be, our our retail example of buying a pair of shoes. Let's say that you are looking to buy a pair of new shoes and you look on a website. You look on a website, you click and you add it to the cart, but you don't buy the shoes. You go to their mobile application, and the mobile application again, you look through the cart and you look at some other shoes, and then you still don't make the decision. You call in to the retail company to understand like why a specific color of the shoe is not available. As soon as the contact center gets that call, the contact center then quickly asks the question, are you calling in to ask about the pair of new shoes that you're trying to buy? For the agent to have that level of interaction, for having that first question to be asked, they need to get information, access to what was the purchase history, what's the customer insight, what were they browsing on their web history, as well as contact information about who is calling. That's exactly what we present to the agent. All right, now let me summarize about what I have discussed with Amazon Connect customer profiles. So there are 4 clear use cases which our customers today use us for. Number 1, agent experience. Our customers use our agent application widget to unify all of their customer data and to reduce longer than average call handle times, as you will see in the example of any company in the builder session. Second, a lot of our customers are using us for automation, which means that a call comes in, you detect who is calling, that customer is routed to a specialist agent to attend to their needs, or the customer goes through an IVR or a self-service workflow to complete the work on their own, and they don't need to be connected to an agent. Some of our customers are also using this rich history for driving their web and mobile application experiences. Let's say that you have a customer who is trying to interact with you over a mobile application as a customer service team. You can get all of that updated through customer profiles. The third is identity resolution at scale. So we use machine learning to go and match your data between different applications and tie that data together into a unified profile. And that helps your agent that he or she doesn't need to jump between different applications, but finds all of that data in a single place. But last and not the least is customer insights. We also plan to provide customers with insights about what's the intent of the call, why is the customer calling, so that the agent doesn't have to ask the usual questions such as who is calling, what are your email addresses, what are you calling about. Agent starts already with the context about who and why are they calling. All right, with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Quinn, to help us with how to get this built. Over to you, Quinn.
Thank you, Shobit. Today, we're going to be using a fictitious business, any company, as our example. We will go through and build a demo on how you could easily unify your data from your customer data from multiple data sources. Then we can leverage this data to do automation and personalization. And finally, we'll showcase the machine learning capabilities from our identity resolution feature to identify duplicate records in our data sources and merge these records together. Let's get started. In the first section, what we're going to do is set up the integration with different data sources. In our example, any company is a services company who provides domestic services to their client. They use Salesforce as their customer relationship management software. And specifically, they use the Salesforce contact object to maintain the records about their customers. This includes client information such as first name, last name, email, and phone number. To keep track of their service history for their different customers, they also have a separate homegrown system that records all of the service record histories, which agent was assigned to which record, what was the status of that service request, when did that service request happen. All of that is stored in a homegrown system. So today, I'm going to walk through a Salesforce environment. We'll show you the fictitious customers that we had created in the Salesforce environment. We're going to set up a Amazon Connect customer profiles domain from scratch for your Amazon Connect instance. After that, we're going to set up the integration between Salesforce and our customer profile domain and start the ingestion for the data into Amazon Connect customer profiles from Salesforce. We'll then use the out-of-the-box agent application to validate the profiles that were created from Salesforce. And then we are going to create a separate ingestion mechanism to ingest the data that we have from our homegrown CRM in the form of a service record data using Amazon S3 as our data source. We will then talk about how to design a project mapping schema to allow the service to know how to ingest the data. Finally, let's get started and get building. As you can see, we're in my Salesforce environment. This is the Salesforce contact object. Inside here, any company uses the contact object to store customer details for their customer. You can see I have created some fictitious users inside the Salesforce environment. Specifically, I want to point out that I've got a John Doe, another John Doe, another John Doe, and a Jane Doe. I think I have another John Doe somewhere. Oh, and a Doe John. So these are the duplicate records that I created for John Doe. I have 3 Mary Major customer records, and I finally have 1 Nikki Wolf customer record. Ignore these duplicate profiles for a moment. We're going to let it ingest into our customer profile domain. The reason I created these duplicate records is to show how our identity resolution feature is able to pick these up in the 3rd section. But for now, we're going to focus on how to ingest this data into customer profiles. After looking at what our Salesforce environment looks like, let's navigate back to the AWS console. From the AWS console, let's go to Amazon Connect. Choose your Amazon Connect instance. From there, we can start setting up our customer profiles. Go to the Customer Profiles tab. Here, let's click Enable Profiles. We will create a new domain. We can optionally select a dead letter queue for this new domain. The purpose of this dead letter queue is if we ingest any records that the service fails to process, or it could be the data doesn't match the schema or the profile mapping, the system is going to put those records into the dead letter queue so that you can view the error messages. But for today's example, we're going to skip this configuration. Next, we have to specify a KMS key for data encryption. This is the KMS key used to encrypt all your data in the service. Let's go through the creation process for this KMS key. In the KMS console, let's choose a symmetric key, give it a key alias, and give it a description. And optionally add tags. In the next section, here we define who is going to have administrative privileges for our key. If you have any users that you need to grant this permission to, please feel free to add it here. Otherwise, the default option will give your administrators admin access to this key. Next, we define the usage permissions for this key. We recommend that you use this KMS key solely for the purposes of customer profiles. But if you have your own use cases where you need to grant other users or other accounts access to this key, please consider that. Next, you can define who gets to use, who has the permissions to use this KMS key. We recommend you to set this key only to use by the profile service. If you do have other use cases where you need to extend the usage, you can enable your users from here. For this demo, we'll skip this step. Once we review our key policy, we're going to finish creating the key. Navigate back to the profiles console, and here we can choose the key that we have just created. Submit, and your profiles domain have been enabled. Next, let's create the Salesforce integration. Once the domain has been set up, we can click the Add Integration button, choose Salesforce, click Read and Acknowledge to look at the integration requirements for your Salesforce instance. Once you have met the requirements, click Next, create a new connection, give it a name of your choosing. This defines the name of this connection. We're going to click Login to Salesforce. We will choose your Salesforce account and enable the integration. Once the connection has been established, you can configure what objects from Salesforce you would like to ingest into your domain. Out of the box, Amazon Connect Customer Profiles has native connectors for the Salesforce account, contact, and asset objects. Once you're happy with the date for the integration date, choose Next. Once you review your configuration here, click Create Integration. Now, this Salesforce integration could take anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes for your first integration to be set up. After that, profiles will automatically ingest data from your Salesforce instance. You can check when the last integration was synced by clicking the View Objects button to see when was the last time your objects were synced to this customer profile domain. Once the data ingested, we can use the out-of-the-box agent application to view the records. Now we have navigated to the Amazon Connect agent application. You can see out of the box, we have access to the call control panel where the agent makes calls, but also we have a widget for customer profiles. Here, we can search for the Salesforce records that was ingested. We can search by first name, email, phone number. Let's look for Mary Major. As you can see, we have all 3 of the duplicate Mary Major records ingested. Let's look for Nikki Wolf. You can see the profile for Nikki Wolf is ingested from Salesforce. Now that we have the Salesforce data ingested, let's create the integration to test for the service records. Before we start, it would be great to take a look at our data for the service record. We can see there are different columns here. We've got customer ID. This maps to our Salesforce contact record. We have reference ID for the service request. This is a unique identifier for the service record. We have the service types like cleaning, plumbing, moving. We have the agent assigned for the job, and we also have some additional notes here. So this is what our service record looks like. Next, in order to ingest this data into the profiles domain, we have to define a schema for this data. We're going to be referring to the schema as an object mapping, as we refer to the service record as a profile object type. This profile object type is a record that's associated with a profile. In order to create the profile object mapping, we can use the profile object mapping tool to create this mapping. Here you can see the profiles object mapping tool. We can start by providing the domain name for our profile object. We can create the object type name. We can give it a description. I'm going to go click Next. Here, we can provide an example of what an individual record looks like. I'm going to copy and paste this from our data. Based on this data, the tool is going to grab the fields that are available inside this data model. Here in the dropdown, we can see all of the columns or fields from our source data. By default, the entire source object is ingested. What the object mapping needs to define is how this object is going to be ingested. How are we going to assign the service record to an existing profile object? How can we search these service records? In the object mapping, we have 2 sections. We have the field mapping and the key definition. The field mapping defines if any field from the source object is going to be mapped to the profile object. This is going to be useful if we want to update any of the existing attributes in a profile data from when we ingested from another data source, or if we want to add additional attributes to the profile data. The key definition defines how the source object are assigned to profiles. In our example, we're going to choose these following 4 fields: customer ID, reference ID, last service date, and notes. We click Add Field to Mapping, and what we're going to populate is choose the target field. The target field defines how the profile object is going to update the profile data. So here we want to match the customer ID to the Salesforce contact ID. We want to match. We don't have a match for the reference ID, but we want to use this reference ID as a key. We're going to be creating a custom attribute for the service record called attributes.last service date. And we're going to map the notes to additional information on the profile. Now, next we add our keys. For every object mapping, we require to define 2 separate keys, the unique key and the profile key. The unique key is used to uniquely identify objects, in this case, a service record. The profile key is used to define how to associate the service record with a profile. For example, here we'll use the Salesforce contact ID, which means that when the service is ingesting this data, is going to use the customer ID field here to look up any profiles with a Salesforce contact ID with this value, and then assign this service record to that profile. When we click Next, we can download our template or copy template to clipboard and use the following API to create the object mapping. Once we have downloaded the template, we can use the Put Profile Object Type API to update and to create this object type. Once this object type is created, now we can create the data ingestion from the S3 as a source. Once the profile object type has been created, now we can upload the data to S3. Navigate to Amazon S3, create bucket, give it a name, once the bucket has been created, navigate to the bucket, create a folder. We can name this prefix service records. Once we have the service record prefix created, we can upload our CSV file to the bucket. Navigate back to the profile once the object has uploaded. Click Add Integration, choose S3, check the S3 account meets the integration requirements, choose the bucket, make sure the bucket is in the same region. Choose the prefix, you can choose the service record object type, make sure the dates are correct, click Next, and create integration. Similar to the Salesforce integration, the first integration setup will take between 5 to 15 minutes in order for the integration to be set up. Once this integration has been set up, new data ingested into S3 will be automatically ingested into the domain. In the next section, we're going to be using this data that we set up now to set up automation and personalization. For the purpose of this webinar, I've created this integration on another domain ahead of time, which we're going to be using in the next section. To summarize what we just went through, we did a walkthrough on how you can ingest your customer data into Amazon Connect from 2 different data sources. We used the out-of-the-box connectors, object type mapping, and the out-of-the-box agent application widget. Using these tools, we can provide a more personalized experience for the customer. In the next section, I'll show you how to use the data we ingested to create automation. When a customer calls in to a phone number that's on Amazon Connect, the call goes through a contact flow. The contact flow describes how a customer experiences your contact center from start to finish. At the most basic level, contact flows enable you to customize your interactive voice response system. Amazon Connect provides an out-of-the-box graphical interface which allows you to easily create contact flows. In the next section of this demo, we're going to be creating a contact flow. Inside this contact flow, we're going to be using the Customer Profiles API to search for the profiles associated with the customer's phone number when they called in. We're going to then look up any of the service records associated with that profile. We're going to return this data into the contact flow to allow the contact flow to deliver a more personalized experience. After that, we will show a custom agent desktop that I've built to surface the service record data to the agent. Now let's begin. Navigate to your Amazon Connect admin console. Go to Contact Flows, and we can create a new contact flow. We'll first by enabling logging and recording. Logging will log the contact flow experience to the CloudWatch logs, and the recording block will enable call recording for your contact center. Once we have enabled logging and recording, now we want to use the Amazon Connect customer profiles to get the personalized data based on the customer's profile. We'll do this with an AWS Lambda function to search for the profiles and service record. Let's navigate to the AWS Lambda console. Let's create a function from scratch. We'll use the Node.js runtime and click Create Function. Once the function is created, we have to update the Lambda function's execution role to provide it with permissions to access customer profiles. Once the function is created, we're going to click on the Configurations tab, Permissions, and identify the role for the Lambda function that is attached to this function. In this role, we have to attach a policy to provide it access to customer profiles. Let's first create a policy. Go to Policies, create policy, choose a service, profile, and we're going to provide read-only access. For the purposes of this demo, we will go scope the access to all resources. However, please change this for your own setup. We will provide it with a name, create policy. Now let's go back to the IAM role and attach this policy to the role. Once this policy is attached, the Lambda function can now access customer profiles. Go back to the code and let's describe what we're going to be coding. From a high level, we're going to be receiving the phone number from Amazon Connect the contact flow. We're going to search for profiles with the phone number of the customer calling in. For the purposes of this demo, we'll be taking the first profile that is returned. There could be multiple profiles that are returned in the real world. Here, you would write business logic to determine which profile would be the most relevant. You can check for contact attributes or other records attached to the profile, even the last update date for records attached to the profiles. For the simplicity of this demo, we'll be choosing the first profile that's returned, and based on the profile ID, we're going to be looking at the service record attached to that profile. Let's start coding. So the first thing we need to do is initialize the AWS SDK and the Customer Profiles SDK client. We initialize this outside of the Lambda function handler. Next, we're going to be creating a phone number variable. This phone number is passed in from the contact flow, and we can access it in this JSON path. Next, we will be using the phone number to make an API call to search for the profiles attached to this phone number. Like I described earlier, we'll be grabbing the profile ID and the first name from the first item in that list. The first name is going to be used to greet the customer in the contact flow, and the profile ID will be used to search for the service records attached to this profile. Next, we're going to be calling the List Profile Objects API passing in the profile ID and the service record as the object type name. The service records will be returned with the most recent one at the top of the list, so we can grab the latest service record with the following code. Then we can identify the service type of that particular service record, whether it was plumbing, whether it was moving, or electricity. And we can identify, based on other notes in the service record, if the service was cancelled or anything else related to that service record. In this example, we're going to be alerting our contact flow that the service was cancelled based on the note in the service record. And lastly, we will return this value back to our Amazon Connect contact flow. So the contact flow can use this data to do automation and personalization. We'll deploy the Lambda function, and now we can go back to the Amazon Connect contact flow editor. Here we can invoke our Lambda function by adding our Lambda function to the Amazon Connect contact flow in the Amazon Connect console. So go back to the console, Amazon Connect. In contact flows, we can choose the Lambda function to add to the contact flow. Once this Lambda function has been successfully added, we can choose the Lambda function from our dropdown. Once the Lambda function has successfully invoked, we can access the variables returned by the Lambda function inside contact attributes. And the first thing we can do is we can save this contact attribute in a user-defined contact attribute. All of the Lambda function responses are stored in the external namespace. So by defining user contact attributes like this, we can access the responses from the Lambda function. Once we save the contact attributes, we can do branching logic on these contact attributes. So like I said earlier, we can branch based on whether or not the last service was cancelled. So we can do this with the check contact attributes block. So if the last service was cancelled for our customer, we can greet the customer by their name and escalate the call to an agent with higher priority. We can change the priority of the contact by the change routing age and priority block. The queue priority 1 is the highest priority. And before we transfer the customer to a queue, we will play a customized prompt. For example, we can say something along the lines of, hello, refer to the customer by name. Thanks for calling, and we noticed that your last service type was cancelled. In this case, it would be plumbing or electricity or moving, and we can escalate this call to an agent immediately. In order to transfer the call to a queue, we will have to define which queue to transfer to. In this case, we can choose our basic queue and then transfer the call to a queue. In the example where the service wasn't cancelled, you can have other self-service tools like Alexbot here to greet and interact with your customer to figure out the intent and transfer the customer to the most appropriate queue. But today, our demo, we will be building out the first flow. And now what we have to do is connect all these error branches to the disconnect flow for now. Once we give it a name, we can publish the flow. Once our flow is published, we can associate our phone number with this flow and call in to experience this contact flow. Once we have our phone number associated with our contact flow that we just designed, now we can call in and see what the contact flow says.
Hi, Key. Thanks for calling. We've noticed that your last plumbing was canceled. We apologize for any inconvenience. We will escalate this call so you can speak with someone who can help immediately. Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us and will be answered in the order it was received.
So what you just heard there was the customer going through the contact flow and was able to grab the profile information from the customer, greet the customer, and understand that the customer was calling about their last plumbing service that was cancelled on the service date. All of this information was serviced to the agent inside our custom agent application. So the customer services widget, our customer profiles widget is available out of the box, and you can use our Amazon Connect Streams.js library as well as the Amazon Connect Customer Profiles API to build a custom widget to showcase information such as your service records. In the previous section, we looked at how to use Amazon Connect contact flows and AWS Lambda along with the Customer Profiles API to build an automated and personalized experience for the caller. In the next section, we'll show you how to use the new identity resolution feature, which is now available in preview, to get started unifying these duplicate records. We can enable Amazon customer profiles to automatically detect these duplicate customer profiles by switching on the feature. The identity resolution uses machine learning to detect duplicate profiles based on similar name, email, and phone number. For example, if 2 or more profiles have spelling mistakes, like the ones we've seen earlier with John Doe and John misspelt, or different casing with email addresses and different phone number formats, these can all be detected when the identity resolution feature is going through the data. To enable the identity resolution to run, we simply call the update domain API on any existing domain, or pass in the parameter of matching equals to true when you're creating the domain. The following CLI command we can use to update our existing domain to enable identity resolution. Once identity resolution is enabled, Customer Profile Service will, in the backend, run the machine learning job every Saturday at 12 o'clock UTC. This job runs on a weekly interval, and the results can be viewed with the Get Matches API. For the purposes of this demo, I'm using another domain that I have created where the data has already been processed by the identity resolution feature. We can use the AWS Customer Profiles Get Matches API to list the matches that it's found. This data was originally inside our Salesforce account, and these are duplicate Salesforce contact records. The API, you can see, returns a list of matches, and each match contains a list of profile IDs that the service deems to be duplicates. We can use the Search Profile API to look at these individual profiles to check for the service's matches. We can see we have 2 groups of matches here. The first group of 3 profile IDs and a group of 5 profile IDs. We're going to be looking at these matches separately. Let's first look at the first group of 3. We can use the Search Profile API to look at these. we can see that this first record with the profile ID starting with 705A is for Mary Major. Let's look at the next one. This profile ID D171 also looks like to be the identical record from Mary Major. And the same for the third one. The only difference for these records are the Salesforce account ID, Salesforce contact ID, which is the different contact ID objects that were ingested. And we can see that this one has last service date and last updated time updated. These are from the service records that were ingested that was mapped onto this particular profile ID. So now what we can do is we can use the merge profile API to merge these three profiles into one API, into one profile. The merge profile API uses quite a few different input sources. So what we can do is we can use the generate CLI skeleton option to create a JSON file as the input for our API request. Now I've opened up the JSON file that was generated by that CLI command. We can see these are the attributes that are available for us to use in this API call. What we will do here is we'll fill out the domain name, the main profile ID. We'll choose this one because it has the service record attached, and everything else is the same. And we'll list the profiles that need to be merged. So it would be this one. And here we will specify the profile IDs that we'll be using for these fields. So because we don't have an account number field, we'll remove that. The additional information field is also not populated. We'll remove these. First name, we'll use the first name from the main profile. Don't have a middle name. Same with last name. For phone number, we can use the one from the main profile. And because everything else is the same, we can use the main profile for most of these. However, just for the purpose of this demo, I'll use one of the secondary profiles for the email address. For the attributes, we can use we can populate these attributes here. We can use the main profile. And then the Salesforce contact ID, we can use the main profiles. Once we have this file, we can save it. And in the API here, we can refer to this input file and make the API call. Based on your business objectives, you can write custom business logic to merge these records. You can call the getMatches API, iterate through the profiles, and validate the match, and then call these programmatically. The expected behavior is that all the profile objects associated with the profile will be all linked back to the main profile ID. Now let's quickly review the other duplicates that we found. Let's have a look at this first one. This is our John Doe with the misspelled first name, John. This is Jane Doe with the same phone number and email as this next first name and last name is the wrong order, Doe John. And then this last one is a John Doe with the correct John Doe phone number, but it looks like it's missing an email field. And then finally, our last example would be the John Doe with the most complete information here. So if we were to write a business logic here, we would probably identify this last one as the primary profile. However, when we see the fuzzy matches like this, the best thing would be to route a task to an agent to ask them to manually validate and merge these profiles. So these merging requests can be created with a Amazon. So in this demo, we showed how to quickly identify duplicate records and merge them using the APIs from Identity Resolution. Duplicate records is a common problem for our customers, with organizations reporting up to 10 to 30% of their customer records having duplicates in them. By removing these duplicates, we can speed up our agents' efficiency and overall help to improve the customer's experience. To help you get started, please visit the Amazon Connect landing page. From there, you can find all the blog posts and other resources to help you get started with Amazon Connect customer profiles. Thank you very much.